All right, y'all. So you're here with Unlocked, and we've got Zach, Christine, Kenster, Agbor, and me, Jawabu. And we're here about to have a discussion about reparations, unity, and revolution. So this is really a discussion that Zach came up with the idea for. So we have a couple questions that are going to guide us through the discussion. But if y'all want to chime in, just hit in the comments. And if y'all want to be in, let us know as well. We might be able to drag you into the discussion. So I think I'm just going to introduce myself again because this is my second time being on here. Probably the second time y'all see me. My name is Jalen or Jawabu. And I'm one of the founders of Unlocked, but I'm gonna let Kenny go ahead and introduce himself as well.
Hey y'all, everybody. I'm Kenny. I went to UGA. Cool. Jalen's my boy. Zach's my boy. Pleasure meeting you all too. Been kind of collaborating on this project right here to really kind of build out. You know what I'm saying? What kind of like what we'll do and discuss and how we plan to kind of build. So I've been working with Jalen and Zach on this, and you know what I'm saying, it's been a cool process. You know what I'm saying? It's been in the works now for several months. You know what I'm saying, amongst us, but honestly a lifetime in the making, just from kind of the experiences we lived and like how we're bringing that to, kind of the conversations that we have.
All right.
Word.
So Zach again. Uh Fun fact, just real quick, we all University of Georgia grads. Gotta throw that back in there.
Oh yeah, turn up. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bulldog Nation.
Go dogs.
Today decided to bring two guests in because I felt like they would be great contributions to our conversation today. And I'm gonna introduce.
Okay. Well, my name is Christine, and I'm sure one of the guests that Zach talked about. It's an honor to be here with you guys. I think conversations like this are very necessary for us to have. So, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Awesome.
Name's Agbor. Appreciate Zach for telling me about this. First told me about the book club about, I would say, over a month ago. Shoot, and I've just been really looking forward to it, and to have a platform where we can discuss it live and just hearing different opinions on. I think it was Kenny who said a shared experience from different perspectives. I'll say it's just really eye opening, and I think very necessary, especially with everything going on. So.
Definitely, most definitely. Yeah, we're right in the middle of it again. So you know, a lot of emotions coming out, man. I felt a lot of emotions this past year in general, man. It's been intense.
Yeah. I know. So just to start off, we're gonna ask this question. Christine actually inspired this question, and we want to know, like, do we think that unity is possible? Do you think unity among our citizens, U.S., amongst the people of the entire globe, the world, that universal happiness, that universal oneness, togetherness, that one cohesive unit, do we think that's possible? Who would like
Do
to?
you want to start the discussion with is it possible amongst everybody or amongst black people?
Which I'm cool. Either one. What y'all down with? I guess we would start off with black people.
I think I think it's yeah, I think it's black people, and then I think it's because honestly, I'll say this, and I know this is something we'll probably end up discussing in one way or another, but for a lot of white people joining the movement or being active, whether that's Jimmy Kimmel on, you know what I'm saying, his night show, or whether that's white people that was walking next to us when we out protesting, it's kind of like, okay, is this a movement for humanity?
Yeah.
Is that where you all get on, or is this it's also a movement amongst our people? So like it's two sides to it, because that's how we feel when we out there, and then we looking, you look to the side, you like, okay,
Yeah.
what Hannah doing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's both of those things right now. So like we should probably answer both.
Okay. I'm cool with that. Bro, I'd definitely be surprised. Like,
Right?
I don't know why though, because I do know so many people that they would like to claim to be white progressives and whatnot and everything. And it's just like, your struggle this whole time, your side of it
Right.
and everything.
Right.
But then it's like, you don't know who's gonna put up when it's time to actually,
When it's time.
talk, So it's real interesting. And crazy thing is, some of them be going harder than us. And I love it. I'm like, I'm gonna let you handle that. I'm gonna let you handle that.
Bro.
Like,
But
Yeah. It's
sometimes I
very
question the motive though, because for me it's just like if when we're out there and we're protesting as black people, as people who, this is my experience, my lived experience.
yeah,
I feel we're fighting for our lives, literally. And then when you have white protesters, sometimes I'm just like, what's your creed?
yeah,
Like, what exactly are you doing here? Because, like you said, they be the most reckless people at the protests and whatnot, the most passionate, it seems. So sometimes I'm just like, what does this mean to you? Because for me, I'm literally fighting for my life. So for you,
yeah,
you can look the other way and go back home and turn on whatever TV and just chill. Like, you don't have to deal with this at all. What does this mean to you? So.
Have
yeah,
any of you started
definitely.
reading any of Between the World and Me? I know Zach started reading it a little bit, but he has a quote in here that talks about that, where he talks about how like white Americans can delve or they can go back into this dream, whereas black Americans were
Mhm.
forced to like face that reality like on a day-to-day basis.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know I constantly question the like, is this is this trendy for you, dog?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, is
Is
this
this part of your youth? You know what I'm saying?
yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Like you ain't been in the gym shooting with me, dog. Like basketball wasn't your sport, dog. Like we kind of been talking about this stuff, and now all of a sudden you get it. Like now all of a sudden, like especially with all them apologies, dog. Those apologies from like not apologies, but the support tweets and
Yeah,
stuff.
from like
Like
different companies and things like
yeah,
that.
like ones where it's like, yo, we
Link
5 years
tree. Link tree, you know what I'm saying? Black Lives Matter, link tree in the bio. You know what I'm saying? I'm joining. That's my stamp of I'm joining the movement. And like I mean, it's honestly not black or white. No pun intended and pun intended. But it's like I don't know, man. Like seeing white people put up a black power fist. I don't. If you even if you're just wearing that, oh my gosh, you're wearing that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like years ago, like a couple decades ago, that would have never happened just off basis of the just the tension and the representation. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, it's different this time. Like, you know what I'm saying? What's this Tommy and Jordan at the Olympics putting that, putting a black power fist up. That was a real statement at the time. And they caught a lot of flack for that. You feel me? And it's like now white people are actually doing that. So I think that's the other side of the conversation that we should talk about because their energy is a part of the movement. And it's kind of like, okay, is this a movement? How is it? Nobody really knows how the movement's really gonna take shape for real all the way. It's kind of like becoming seen because maybe it ends up being that all of these white people will be included in some way, shape, or form. But I know the energy for the most part has been like, okay, if you're rioting, then obviously it's white people and black people out there. Nobody really cares. When you're protesting and you're around, you're kind of thinking about it, a little bit more, and people are trying to figure out how to make this energy work. You know what I'm saying? Like if you went out like what was like a month ago, like when they were in the whole Centennial Park area protesting, and then it became looting and rioting and stuff like that, the vibe was very intense. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a friend out there. The vibe was very intense. And then, me and Zach ended up being out there as like this was probably like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and it felt it felt like a farmer's market. You know what I'm saying? Like there were white people out there handing out bottles of water. Hey, we
yeah.
support you. You want some chips?
So I made my sign.
Like, yeah.
We had all the supplies, bro.
You know, so like it's like how do we even respond to that, man? Like, and I had a very like radicalizing conversation the night before with a friend of mine, and he was basically like, yo bro, like basically what y'all are saying, white people get the chance to check in and check out, bro. And he's like, right now, I don't have the time to try to decide if I trust you, because for me, it's a matter of my life. It's a matter of my people's
Right.
life. So he's not saying he's opposed to have like white people in general. He's just saying, yo, that's not where my energy is, and I don't have time to figure that out with a white person. And me and the same person, we ended up we had lunch one day, and we were talking about the barbershop, and a white dude was sitting next to us. What's up?
Hello. You finish it. I'm not trying to come in.
Finish your
All right.
statement, and then we'll fill
All
Courtney
right.
in.
All right, cool. But yeah, a white dude was sitting next to us, and we were having this conversation about like barbershops, like, yo, hair therapy, you know what I'm saying? But it's also like freaking podcast in there, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody's talking about whatever. Some people, it's just different, you know how the barbershop is, different characters, different personalities, different conversations. And this white dude jumps in, is like, yeah, man, I wish I had a space like that to go to. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I wish the barbershop was that for me. You know what I'm saying? And my homie was like, yo, like, do you understand what that space means to us? And so he was coming at it from that perspective. And I found out that the dude went to Georgia, like the dude went to UGA. And I was like, yo, like, the reason I'm open to even engaging with you right now is because going to PWI just helped me see, like, okay, there's a spectrum of white people too. Not all white people are going to be cool with me. You know what I'm saying? I can't be on the same level with all white people, but I do know that there's certain white people that they genuinely do have genuine hearts, and they are authentic, and that does exist at least. So like, you know what I'm saying, the kind of person I am, I try to see that in people. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm not sure how much merit it'll hold, but I found it really interesting with COVID and Corona happening, where for the first time it felt like white people were upset because it felt like their little freedom or power or whatever was taken away by the sheltering in place, right? Because when you look at all the different states, you saw a lot of white people going up to like their congressmen and like, oh, we don't want to be in the house and we don't want to be this. And it's like they almost kind of got like a taste of medicine, what it's like to have your freedom away, to have your rights stripped, to be told what to do, this, that, and the third. And so I just kind of, I'm trying to bridge that between their actions now, right? Because we're still having that happen. With the pandemic and the sheltering in place with the revolution. So I think that's something to maybe think about as far as with their actions, because now they maybe know a little bit more, right? Not fully enough.
About, yeah, like, oh yeah, you're feeling a certain oppression right now, or quote unquote oppression right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think they're copying black rhetoric or black ethos when we talk about oppression and whatnot, and they're just not planning it in the right places. Like the whole Corona thing was definitely something, but I think with police, I don't know if y'all saw like the video of the lady police officer. She was crying because she said something about Dunkin' Donuts. They were slow with her order, and she was trying to relate it back to people just not treating police fairly, or the there was that. There was the police officer. What was it? I can't think of the word, but he was speaking to like a bunch of reporters, and he was super pissed. And his whole rhetoric was literally like, if you could replace police officer with the current police officers with black people, the exact same thing, talking about how they're sick and tired.
Oh my gosh.
Part of the conversation.
Oh my god.
Being treated like thugs. I was like, what sense? You're literally copying the rhetoric of it's very interesting to me.
Yo, that's crazy, man.
I think to your point, that's why it's so important to understand the theory behind oppression instead of just the idea of it. You can understand by itself, okay, black people are oppressed and we do something about that. But unless we understand the theory behind that, why that oppression comes about, how it's perpetuating society systemically, then what you do is even if you're part of the oppressed class, even though they think that police officers are oppressed, what they're going to do is perpetuate that oppression to other people. So it's like they can't see that parallel because they don't see the underlying theory. They only see the exact example. And that's why political and like revolutionary education is so important. That's why it's so important to understand what's going on and why, not just reacting to exactly what you see.
Do you have any knowledge yourself about like the theory of oppression that you could like?
A little. I don't. Did you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay. I mean, I'm by no means a scholar. I think I've just read some things in college and kind of watched YouTube videos, stuff like that. But from what I understand, and I think I talked to Zach about this before, it kind of all runs around this idea that I believe that capitalism really funds oppression. You know, it doesn't work unless people are being oppressed.
Wow.
Right.
And like, I know that's a big claim.
That's just an interesting way to say it. I was just reacting to that, but it's kind of true, you know.
It is, because my thing is capitalism is perpetuated by exploiting the lower class. So if not for there being a lower class to be afraid of being homeless, of being job insecure, of being without food, of being without these certain things, you couldn't scare them into doing certain things.
Exactly.
Like, the reason why people are out protesting now more than they ever have is because now they know, well, I ain't got no job. Corona took my job. Or I know that I feel insecure in my home and food. I have nothing left to lose. Capitalism says you have just enough to lose for me to control you. You have just enough to where you don't want to be homeless. You don't want to be without food. And it's a possibility. So I'm going to keep you doing this labor. I'm going to steal.
The devil don't want to let her talk, dog.
I'm saying she was saying some shit,
and it was real talk too. Oh, I'm mad. Oh man, that ain't nothing but the devil.
Get your Wi-Fi back. Get your Wi-Fi back.
It's got to be the rain. It's got to be some rain down there. It's been raining in certain.
Probably, yeah. It was raining over here earlier. Yeah.
Damn, dog.
She got to call back in. Remember where she was at? What? Retrace that. Y'all not gonna help me out?
Talking about how capitalism funds oppression. Like that was basically like
that was the basic. Okay.
Right.
Damn.
I was trying to think of the last word. Maybe the idea would have been easier.
Dog, that's the part that makes it so hard though, because we know, for a lot of us, we know that if we're oppressed as a group, so we gotta overcome as a group, and most of the plans as a group to get us, I guess, back on. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Came back with the phone.
There we go.
Relentless.
Oh no.
It's cool though.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Courtney, can you hear us? Oh man.
We
What that?
well, finish your statement.
I wanted to ask her. What I was gonna get into was like a lot of our plans. They say that we have to win economically. I know, for instance, like Kwame Ture says, we got to do it politically first. A lot of other books say do it economically first. But it's kind of like, if I even try the economic route, then I have to play the game that
you have to buy in. You have to participate.
Yeah.
And there we go. Are you back?
Yeah, my bad.
Okay.
The powers that be took me out real quick.
Man, yo.
You remember where you was at?
Y'all think that's a lie?
We're talking about capitalism and how that fuels oppression.
Yeah.
So to that end, realizing that capitalism is what I believe what fuels oppression. One of the main fuels in the American society today, because I feel like other socialist countries also have their problems with discrimination, but I feel like here in America, capitalism is one of those things that kind of perpetuates that idea. Is to separate these groups and say, don't work in unity, work separately. So for a while, I was like, there's no such thing as an ally. I didn't believe it. I said, no one can no one can go for me or whatever as hard as I can, as hard as my people can. But what I realized is the strongest activists that we have had, like Fred Hampton, people like that, the reason why they were so terrifying to the government was because they could unify people across racial lines by class. It's class unity that's going to help all of us. If we say, I'm Black, no one understands that, he's Asian, he's Palestinian, we can't work together. My thing is, the way the system is going, they're effing all of us up, you know? And so they might not understand exactly what Black means to me, but there's a reason why these things are happening. It's not happening just because, it's not solely because we're Black. It's happening because it's profitable to fuel this oppression.
Yeah.
And you can see that now, because now every company has Black Lives Matter. You know, it's okay to say Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
It's profitable to do so.
Exactly.
That's the reason why they give us what they want, because it's profitable to do so. And so some people say, well, since we know that we have buying power and we have profit, instead we should opt into the system and businesses. I don't believe that personally. I feel like you can't opt into a corrupt system, because if it's not you getting effed over, it's your brother, it's somebody else. So if we want all of us to eat, if we want all of us to win, you got to get rid of the system altogether.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you, because I know we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Dang, this is deep, man.
I definitely was on the side of, I'm going to worry about us. And I was like, yo, you need to get this money, dog. We need to get this together, you know?
I mean, money only lasts so long. That's the thing about
that's true.
She's saying something totally different, bro. Like
yeah.
that's the whole remember we was talking about this. So it's people that's a part of this consciousness, this movement, whatever. Some people saying reform, some people saying resistance. You know what I'm saying? And it may take both, but what do both look like? We know more, case in point, what resistance looks like. You know what I'm saying? But there's other strategies that I'm learning, like, physical strategies, tactical strategies for moving people against the police. You feel me? That's what I'm, like, it goes to that extent. And then like reform is still very much, reform is attacking the system. That's how I look at it. And resistance is attacking the system, but it's attacking it through the people. It's attacking it through what's seen, what's felt. It's tactical in nature. And we're trying to fight two things right now. We're trying to fight people that perpetuate a system, and we're trying to unpack the system that perpetuates these people. So it's like, maybe it's both. I don't know. I'm theorizing right now, but those are the things we're trying to attack. And who knows how it's gonna, like, who knows how just the evolution of it will take hold. You know, that's up to us, really, though. You know, you feel me?
I think that'd be an interesting question for us to maybe like go around and give our perspective on. Like, do y'all think reform is going to be the answer, or do y'all think like a revolution or resistance is going to give us what we want?
I for one cannot imagine a revolution. I think that's my handicap, because I don't know what it'll look like. I can only imagine reform. I can only imagine working with the given system, because I haven't seen. It's been a while, I feel like, in human history where we've seen a revolution, the scale at which I feel like I hear people talking about, you know, just completely banning a pre-existing something which has been functioning for so long, which I feel like this nation was built on. So I don't know, I just feel like it could be really drastic. So for me, I feel like reform is the more plausible route than complete resistance. That makes any sense.
Yeah.
You're saying examples like, I've talked about this with somebody. Hashtag defund the police. That's a great case in point place to start. Right?
Exactly.
So Okay, that's something to talk about because I know there's a couple sides to this argument too. Go ahead. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Yeah. Feel free. Yeah.
No,
Um,
with the police, yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Reform definitely. I don't feel like abolishing. It sounds good. I mean, to abolish it and to put in place a new system. And I have myself put out hashtag abolish the police. I mean, just based on pure emotions at the time, but I just don't see trying to think logically how we can go about it. I feel like it might be possible, but you have to work. I feel like you always just have to work with the system in some way, shape, or form. And for you to not be willing to work with that system is, I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know.
But speak try to speak on that because I mean what you're saying is real. I get what you're saying and like I think this is probably one of the greatest divides that like we will have. You feel me like going forward. And I want to know more about how you like why you think that.
I mean, we live in a country that voted Trump into presidency. Like, I know it wasn't the popular vote. It wasn't the majority of people who voted for Trump, but it was close to. It was almost 50-50 with Trump and Hillary. So you live in a country where there is this great divide, this polarity, uh, and for you to a section, because we can stay in this bubble where I feel like we see things the way we see things, and for us, it just makes sense that something has to happen and something drastic has to happen to the system that we see in the system that victimizes us. But at the same time, we have to realize that the system that victimizes us, well, it victimizes everybody, but not everybody. It's not as easy uh, for everybody to see how it victimizes them. You have to engage everybody as a nation into the conversation. And so the almost 50% that voted for Trump, for you to I feel like you have to work with that segment, and if you don't, I mean that's just war, too. That's just war and just a bunch of I can't even imagine what will happen um, if we're not cautious of that or if we're not considering all those factors.
You
Hmm.
don't think we're all
You're saying that the risk is great. The stakes are high, and you're saying that everyone can't afford or doesn't think they can afford to take certain risks or certain stakes
I
for what
don't
we're
think
at.
everybody can afford to be a Malcolm X. I don't think everybody can afford to be this super militant revolutionary being. Not even as black people, not everybody's ready for that. You know, I know my mom's not ready for that. Sisters try like for
That's
example.
funny. I feel you though. I see. I know what you're saying, bro. Like I
That's by
see.
design, though. It's not just that way just because it's by design. They want to make sure that you're afraid of that.
exactly. We're already at war, bro.
That's
That's
what
true.
I say. We're fighting many wars right now already. We've been fighting wars.
It's like the analogy of a frog in boiling. If you put a frog in boiling water, it's going to jump out because that's hot. If you put a frog in water and let it heat up a little bit over time, it'll stay in there until it dies.
Wow.
That's what they've been doing.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, oh, this is fine, so I'll take a little more. This is fine, so I'll take a little more. No. And it's just all of it. They want us to feel afraid.
Yeah.
Their job is to put fear into us. When they taught us Christianity when we first came over, they were trying to put the fear of God into us.
Exactly.
That we wouldn't do certain things.
And God was them, bro.
Yeah.
God
Yep.
was them.
They said, I am your white savior. Don't question me.
And didn't question it for years, dog.
But
Hmm.
I do agree with what you're saying. I don't think that full revolution is possible because people are afraid. And it's a valid fear. I'm not saying that it's invalid at all. I'm not invalidating the fact that it does make sense to be afraid at this time to be the next Malcolm X, to be next Martin King Jr., because they killed all of them.
But aren't you slowly dying now? Then, if we're going by
Yeah.
that,
My thing is, if I'm
we don't have
living
the
my life right now, like I'm thinking outside of who I am.
right.
As can you hear me?
No, I said right.
I said as a regular person outside of who I am, and that like I like to tell my opinion, I like to be a certain way. not everybody can live like that. Like I have privilege, you know, I live in my parents' house, I do certain things, I can be as vocal as I want. You know, I've gotten to a place in my educational and my career and so forth and so on to where I can do certain things. Not everybody has that same freedom, but that freedom comes from being insecure financially because you have to play the game to get money to live.
Right.
Message capitalism again, but still,
right, it is there.
it's all together. So I agree that full revolution isn't going to happen because the way of this system is so entrenched in everything that we do. But my problem is that I think that it needs to be both simultaneously, and that we have the shell of what our system is, but we start gutting things. So we gut the police and say, you can't do this anymore. Because my thing is, there's no such thing as a good cop, because even the best cop just going along with the status quo in the police system is still going to be horrible. And that's the problem. Reform it. You can't. The Bible says a house built on shaky foundation cannot stand, and the foundation is shaky. You got to tear that down and start from scratch.
Shaky there.
Yeah, a little shaky.
Anyway, so that's the narrative there.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned the police. I be thinking like the exact same thing when they replace white officers with black officers. I'm like, what's that? What exactly are you doing with that? It's annoying to watch, but apart from that, nothing's changing. They're still just serving under the same system. So,
yeah, I don't think the hate bill will help with that.
Nah, dog, you know how many things have been signed? Things have been signed, bro. It did not change the actual effect. Something's been signed and hasn't been enforced, or something have been signed and the social atmosphere is still the same. Like,
yeah,
and not even just on that.
Don't put up this statue. Oh, we're gonna take that statue down for y'all. Y'all feel oppressed? We'll give you a statue.
But going back to okay, I love what y'all are saying. However, for me, just like when I told Christine this earlier, I was like, and I told y'all in the group chat, but I was like, low key, I'm trying to be omniscient, knowing that it's a goal I can never attain. But why not try? I only have this one life. So I think of that with that as well. Like if you saying with the revolution, we know we're not gonna get those fruits of the labor. We know we're not gonna get that. So why not try though? Because as far as we know, this is our one life, literally one. And if we're gonna leave some type of legacy behind, like we already know scientifically, like y'all said, everybody's getting screwed over. You got people that still don't believe in global warming. So like we're still on elementary level problems. We haven't even got to the bigger problems yet. Like we should be up here by now, but we're still here. And it's like how you have to try. You have to try is my thing. I can't be selfish with my life and not try, because I know somebody's coming after me. And it's gonna be either my kids or somebody else's kids or something like and there's no real concept of time. So what happened to my ancestors when they always be saying that stuff like y'all never experienced slavery, but all this stuff right here, but it's still my family, and y'all still my family, and my ones after me is still my family. And as if it was my grandma, you know, if I saw my grandma getting whipped up, you think I'm gonna lose my fucking mind, you know what I'm saying? So that's still my family that went through that. So I still want to see some type of urgency within us to stop having apathy towards us, to actually unify. And you reform, revolution, whatever you want to do, but like we need to start moving with some type of urgency. Like I have no time to worry about Lil Baby right now. I have no time to worry about Gunna's new album. I have no time to worry about the NBA coming back. I have no time.
Unless you're listening to bigger picture.
Exactly, dog. I don't have, my people don't have that luxury. So it's kind of like going back to what y'all were saying with like Agboy was saying, it's a big divide. It's all bipartisan shit. It's a big divide. And I don't have time to cater for those that are unwilling to educate themselves. I don't have time for that. They don't even have time for it because they getting screwed too. They don't have time either. They just don't know it. if I just got to show you how you're getting screwed too? Let me show you how my problems still affect you.
Right.
Oh, so you don't agree with what J. Cole said?
You said what?
You don't agree with what J. Cole said?
What he say? You talking about with the song?
Yeah.
And what aspect though?
What did he say specifically?
Basically, he said, Black Queen, I appreciate you. You are the Nubian goddess of the world.
Right.
But sometimes you be too mean to me. So please breastfeed me your knowledge so I don't have to get it myself.
Dog, I was telling them earlier. I was telling, man, we had this conversation before. I was like, dog, just read the room. Like, this is a song about you. This is a song. You went ahead and called her queen and gave her acknowledgments and said she had some privilege that you didn't have. You all right, but that song was really about you. That had no real message to it. You basically just said everybody has been saying I'm deep as fuck and they just can't understand my music because they're so deep or whatever. And however, I haven't been doing anything. I've just been thinking. Like, I haven't read anything. I haven't moved towards it. I've been out here with y'all, but I really been thinking. That's it. So
yeah,
that was a wrong timing thing. Like, I don't. So no, to answer your question, no, I don't agree. No.
Okay. I'm just gonna play devil's advocate. Okay, just because I haven't heard J. Cole comment. I haven't heard what his comments have been on what the whole beef was, but let me just play, since this is really, I guess, a question of why he would choose to focus on a personal vendetta that he had with No Name in the context of a revolution going on with our people. Like, I'm just gonna throw this out there. What if he was like, we all need to be having a personal conversation about how we're educating ourselves and the form that education is coming in, and him highlighting a song between his like personal way of receiving No Name's consciousness was a way of doing that. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
See, I see that, right? So, like, I understand it. I do. I understand the very level of him saying, hey, we need to educate each other, so we should be nice or whatever, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the context of what was going on at the time, like Zach said, read the room, the context was going on at the time and who you're talking to, it wasn't the right thing to say. To tell a Black woman, which is basically what he did, he told a Black woman saying, you're being too mean, you're being too aggressive, calm it down and teach me. And then understand the context of how often Black women are told that we're too aggressive, that we're too passionate, that we speak too loudly. You know, as Black folks, when we're out in the streets rioting, when we're protesting, whatever it may be, and we're full of passion because it's about us, we're trying to protect our livelihood, we're trying to protect our brothers and our sisters, and so a white person comes and tell us you're being too angry, that makes you upset, doesn't it? So imagine as a Black woman, another Black woman was just murdered. I have all of these Black women, half of them that I know have sexual assault stories, half of them have been abused, this, that, and the third. And then having a Black man come to me after hearing my entire life that Black women are too aggressive, that we speak too loudly, saying, watch your tone. He hit a button. And that's what he did. He hit a button. And if he had read a book, he would know that.
Exactly.
So it's like,
he hit the Black woman button.
But there was just no education there. And like, read the room, learn before you speak, because he did too much. And I still like J. Cole. I'm not going to cancel him.
I know you're a big J. Cole fan, Courtney. I know that about you.
But like,
I think you put that great.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think you put that great because I was feeling personally like people were like taking it out of context by like applying that to like the larger scheme of how people talk to Black people and Black women in general. But the way you just put it really clarified it for me.
That was great.
I think I thought he was just speaking to himself in his own particular situation, but the room, and then when you correlate that with like the history of specifically what's going on, and then how Black women have been regarded to by men in general.
True. Yeah, I didn't have that piece before you said that. I didn't have that perspective at all.
Yeah,
I like that you did it that way because that allowed for some compassion.
Man, that's sometimes all you need is a sprinkle of love. Nah, that helped me understand it in a different way. And yeah, I mean, I feel you. I feel you.
And going back to what I can't remember who initially said it, but even if he was using the situation to highlight a bigger problem, I feel like it was just the wrong route. I feel like he used sexism and misogyny and all that, and even if that was your end goal was this positive, we're on the topic of unity, to unite people around this subject. You used something which for you was easy. It's easy to pick on a woman and tell her this narrative, which is already well established, that you're being an angry black woman. You need to first off, you need to teach us is a problematic narrative because how many times in history have black women been told directly or indirectly that they have is their job to teach, to civilize and culture black men and to be patient with black men um, because it takes longer to mature in different ways. So I feel like him using that to to get to her or to build any sort of conversation just messed up the very foundation of any possible conversation. That's why if you got on Twitter around then, it was just either people attacking No Name or people attacking him. And I'm like, this is even if that was his goal, it was unfruitful.
It still didn't. Yeah, it was unfruitful.
Different is
Yeah.
his message if he's talking to black men. Does it change?
If he was talking to black men, does it change?
Like if he was talking to a black man instead of No Name, but his message was the same. It's like, yo, brother, you got to tone it down.
That'd be interesting.
I feel like that would be different because the you have to look at the historical narrative. That black men have not held each other accountable in that way. It's not part of our historical script. So if he was doing that to a black man, I feel like it would be a different conversation. The fact that he's doing it to a black woman, that narrative has already been established before. So I feel like he was following a pre-built script.
Mm.
Bro, the crazy thing is, like, that song seems so innocent. If you take it out of, like, if you take away just context and everything else around the song, it seems so innocent. And then you have, like, I don't want to say any names, like, but just certain artists that are super toxic. And like, it doesn't even have to have context. It doesn't have to have anything around. You just know the song is toxic. You know it's a negative song, or it seems negative, but it's got a vibe to it. You know, you bounce into it, whatever. You know, you like it. And just the innocent song still has negatives. It still has the things that we want to fight, that we all mostly universally, to some extent, say is wrong. And then these toxic songs, people like, dog, I hate it because people can't get away from them. I'm like, do you not know what this is? You know, psychology, theology, and I'm like, I'm not even a psychologist myself. I fully understand the basics of this. It's still some type of conditioning going on here.
Yeah, man. I do agree. I do agree with you, but I think the reason why our musicians and our athletes get so much pressure put on them is because of, like, it's a lack of a diversity of representation. Like, okay, yeah, you can go on LinkedIn and see stuff like this, but who is in a media eye or who's consuming it? We're getting a chance to do that now because of social media and YouTube. But before now, it's like, okay, music was a mainstream thing that was pushing images and culture, music. You're talking about scripting. Scripting is in our music. Just think about somebody told me this one time in college. He was like, bro, you could be a person opposed to doing hardcore drugs. You never thought about smoking weed. You never thought about, excuse my language, fucking bitches. He said, but just think about it. By the time you ever did crack, or by the time you ever did weed, or by the time you ever fuck that bitch, you probably said it a million times before you did it. So just think about that. You got accustomed. You got warmed up to that idea off of a catchy beat, and you said, "I'ma smoke this weed. I'ma smoke this weed. 5 G's on me. I'ma smoke that weed." You know what I'm saying? Like, and then after a while, what you
Oh, you
doing?
start accepting those things. You internalize them. reproducing those actions.
That's a form of scripting. But the argument that I'm making is we need other forms of scripting. Like we were talking about, I know me and y'all, we were talking about the Black Panther the movie, and from a sense of it could take you into this world of black people and this Afrofuturism and give you a diverse representation of black people. You know what I'm saying? Like you see black people as kings, you see black people as the villain, you see strong black women roles, you know what I'm saying? You see all this diversity, and it didn't put so much pressure. I know Ryan Coogler was saying this. It didn't put so much pressure on like having to fit or having to properly represent each black person. You could be more natural in the diversity of black people. You know what I'm saying? Like how they push going to Howard. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, we don't have black and white people, but we have a diversity of black people here. That's true. You know? So like
he talks about that in the book.
Really?
Eventually. But continue.
Okay. But yeah, I mean that's basically what I'm saying. Cause I mean I was answering some point of just critiquing J. Cole and No Name. Just like we're looking at artists and we're critiquing them hard right now. You know what I'm saying? And if you look at it really though, it's funny to think though. But if you look at it, you know, people like, you know what I'm saying, J. Cole or Lil Baby or like No Name, other artists are they're the ones out here, even basketball, like, you know what I'm saying? They're out here walking, leading marches, you know what I'm saying? They're like, they got this hoop truck, like they drive, it's like Black Lives Matter hoop edition. They're going around to different cities doing like dunk competitions in the middle of the street on a Black Lives Matter kind of campaign type thing. So they are using it in certain ways, like they Huh? Oh, okay. I mean, Colin. Like, I mean, we could talk about Colin Kaepernick. Him taking a knee means something completely different now. Like, it had context then, but Black Lives Matter has a whole different context behind it now. And an athlete, they're talking about this in the NFL now because of Colin simply taking a knee. You know what I'm saying? So athletes do have this influence, but sometimes we overemphasize or we look to them too much because we don't have other representations to look to.
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm saying.
Are you about to?
No, you can go.
Yeah, go.
So I was watching this documentary last week or so called Disclosure. It's about trans folks and like their struggle in media and how they're portrayed. And so I suggest everyone watch that because once again,
it's actually pretty good.
You said Pose?
No, Disclosure.
Oh, Disclosure. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There's only one part I didn't like though, because they were talking about how like in the movies early on they used men to play those roles when they could have got the women to play the roles and everything. But then when they talked about the woman's body and something like that, they used Kim Kardashian for like her body when they could have used an actual black woman that Kim was trying to emulate. Which
but the point that I was trying to make was that there's a quote in there, I forget who says it, specifically that if there was more representation, the occasional clumsy reference or the occasional clumsy representation wouldn't matter so much. If we had more people in the front just being black, just living, just showing our narratives, having one that's kind of like, you kind of get the spirit, but not really, wouldn't matter as much.
Right.
You know? Like, that's why I love like Insecure. It's just black people being black people. And so I saw the critiques on Twitter saying, well, you're not showing low income folks. You're not showing this. You're not showing that. I'm like, don't try and shoehorn all these things into one thing. We need more. Because if you shoehorn everything, or you say you black athlete have to be everything, you black artists have to be everything, we lose the message. There's too much dissonance. There's too much going on at once. We need more, not just one person being everything. And then moving on to your point about the Kim Kardashian, I think the point they were trying to make there is more so the cyclical nature of how trans folks, the ballroom scene, drag queens, things like that, set the precedent of how the image of what femaleness or femininity looks like. And so it was more so the way that Kim Kardashian looks, the surgery that she got is based off a cycle of what's been looked at. You know, like the old drag queens look back to older 1920s pinup girls, you know? And so when drag queens did their makeup, you know, they did it very, you know, it's stage makeup. You know, it's meant to be seen on stage. It's meant to be bright. It's meant to be seen, you know? And so when they go and do makeup for other people, then they're doing it the same way. Or like the any makeup artist that might have been in ball culture who saw them do it a certain way, they take those things on. So it's about LGBTQ culture being an undercurrent in our society, an undercurrent of how we define a lot of things that we do without us knowing.
Yeah.
It's a counter. Yeah, you're right.
And,
It's
you know,
counter to that.
It
One
all
thing,
comes back to unity. We're all setting the cultural precedent at the same time. Black people set culture, LGBTQ set culture. All of us are doing these things together. We can't be invalidating each other's struggles. We can't be disrespecting each other between black men, black women, between black cisgender folk, between black LGBTQ, anything. You can't do that because the whole point is to divide. I promise you.
Right.
I think it'd be interesting. I have a question. This is something I've been wondering. But do you think that the LGBTQ movement has helped bridge any empathy between white people recognizing black people's oppression?
I would say definitely, definitely. I feel like kind of going back to your point, Courtney. Was it Courtney or Stephanie? Courtney. I really wanted to speak on it because for me, I feel like outside of white people, and if you take out white institutions, I'm very critical of black men because I feel like outside of whiteness, once again, black men are the most anti-black. We are the most passionately anti-black group. There is cisgendered heterosexual black men, that is, because what we do is we're talking about quotes early on when we started, just our favorite quotes, and mine was "Existence is resistance." And what black men do is they try to bring it down to a very singular black male narrative, because we love to throw out, a Malcolm X to represent the people, or Martin Luther King, or Nat Turner, or just this strong black male leads who are going to protect our women and all that stuff. And I feel like you see that even today. Black people. June was LGBT, was Pride Month, and you had all this pro-black people who just swore they were the blackest, black, but nobody said nothing. I was shook, except for, if you look at certain people who are particularly passionate and vocal about LGBTQ politics, the general consensus did not acknowledge it at all. And that's the general consensus that was, every day talking about Black Lives Matter and whatnot. People just did not speak on it. So I feel like that's one thing with black men that we need to work on. We erase a lot of black experiences, and we narrow it down to just black men. And sometimes these days with Breonna Taylor and Sandra Bland, for the two black women who we try to speak of. So, did I say wow? Breonna Taylor and did I mix it up? Hope I didn't.
Nah, you said it.
Yeah, those two names are the only two names of women who I feel like we're pretty vocal about. But of course, there are a ton of women who have been victimized by police brutality, and at least we're starting to have that conversation more often. But we just need to work on not being as selfish in our experience with blackness, and being more encompassing of just the full diaspora within ourselves. And he talks about it, actually. You brought up Howard. He talks about Howard in the book, Coates, and just how diverse Howard was and everything. When you were talking about that, Kenny, earlier, it was just, I think Zach was trying to acknowledge it too, but I was like, wow, because he legit says the same thing about how he got to Howard, and it was just all these different perspectives on what black looks like, and it was a beautiful thing. So
that's awesome. I wonder about what you're saying though, between black men and black women. So I'm talking to a girl on the phone. I'm like, hey, I just went to a protest or whatever, and we just got to talking about like just what it means to be black, and she basically was like, you know what I'm saying, I'm lucky to not be a black man. You know what I'm saying? And she was her perspective on that was almost as if like, man, y'all have it out harder than us as black women. So like as far as the question of police brutality, and I was just kind of wondering, you know what I'm saying, like How y'all feel about that? Do y'all think it's any different as black women? Do y'all feel like, you
I
know,
disagree.
That
oh
may be
man,
a
I'm
media
lucky. I'm lucky to be a
that,
black woman.
that may be a media thing though, bro. That may go back to the point of like how they not getting represented.
It's not
So it's not
highlighted.
taken. Yeah, it's not highlighted like that. So it's like it's gonna
Yeah.
make it seem like we are getting the worst out of it, but
But just her even thinking that, you get what I'm saying? Like, do black women feel that way? Do y'all feel that way? Like, dang, like I'm seeing these dudes getting killed. Maybe it's a representation issue, but her even feeling like that. Do y'all feel like that? Do y'all share that same feeling?
I, I
Black
mean,
men
my
have it
comment
worse.
is like, no, go ahead, Christine, because you've been pretty silent, so I want to hear what you have to say.
Asking, do black women feel that black men have it worse? Is that the
Yeah,
question?
especially in a police brutality sense. Like her comment was like, "Dang, I'm lucky that you know what I'm saying I'm not a black man." You know what I'm saying? Like just based on what's going on in regards to police brutality, I guess, or just like basically, I don't know. Do you feel like the black man struggle is worse than a black woman?
It's really hard for me to think about who has it worse when it's just you just have different roles. I'm just experiencing it, from my standpoint. You're experiencing it from yours, feminine, masculine, whatever. Um, I just collectively just look at it just overall. Black people, we've just never been able to heal psychologically, right? So it's hard for me to just be like, oh, this
Right,
person's had it worse or they had it worse. It's we all are hurting.
right,
Okay. And for
right.
me to, and I had this conversation with my mom the other day, and I was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with 19 Keys. He's like with Derek Grace and all of them. He was talking about with
Yeah,
black women, and a lot of women, they hate me for this, but that's okay. They're talking about how, black women are just like, oh, black men ain't shit. They ain't this, they ain't that, et cetera, and et cetera.
exactly.
And I believe, in the power of manifestation and not like the media indoctrination, how they tried to make it taboo, like actual manifestation, right? And so when I think about black men as being a black woman and being your partner in this, I think about wanting to manifest and project out on the things that I want to see in my black men, right? Not just their hurt, not just their lostness, not just that loss of masculinity, that toxic, as Zach was saying, but just just the strength, the essence of who they are, right? Prior to this indoctrination, this mental enslavement, the psychological enslavement that happened when Europeans, whites, whatever came into Africa, right? Like how much of who we are today is really by our own doing. And so I hope that makes sense or answers. I try to just look at it very collectively, and I try to, right. I don't want to
Yeah.
just say like, oh, black men have it harder, because I feel like that just sets you up for failure. I feel like that
Mm-hmm.
sets us up for failure, and that sets y'all up, y'all up for
Mm-hmm.
failure, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nah, I hear you. I hear you. I'm listening.
Definitely, but at the same time, I believe in intersectionality, and I feel like we just have to acknowledge that based on the difficulties that people face in their Black experience, we can all acknowledge and validate each other's Black experience. But um, Black women just statistically face more obstacles, and it's one thing to talk about police brutality. And, Black men statistically get killed more. About 200 unarmed Black men get killed every year, but Black women, about 500 Black women die every year from domestic abuse cases. So it's by Black men, perpetuated by Black men. So I feel like it's just there are dimensions to it where we're focusing on one conversation and one sort of Black experience, and the movement is capitalizing on that one particular experience. But okay, so whose Black life is not being spoken about? You know, Sis getting beat up at home, and then in the afternoon she's going to the protest to, fight for Black men. It's just a lot of dimensions where I don't know. I just feel like we're not being accountable for all our people. We're not being fully encompassing. Definitely not.
Let me see. That's why it's so hard for me to look at it with such a division, right? Because it really, it's so heartbreaking to me that we're in such a survival mode. Like when you talk about the intersectionality, like who we are today as Black people, this is the result of having to survive white America, right? And it's so hard for me to just really like see it so intersectional like that, because I'm constantly thinking about how we're not healed, so we don't really know like who we are as Black people, and we can't, and I get it, it's like we're in survival mode, and it's like a lot of us, we cannot sit here and process our spirituality or psychologically, we can't step away from this world, right? We can't be up out of this world. But I think it is very important that before we even try to step into the socio-economical, before we even try to step into the political, we really have to just take in and process it for ourselves. Like, what actually did slavery do? And who I am today, am I this because of slavery? Like, I could be like a completely different person. I was talking to one of my friends when you guys spoke about LGBTQ, and he said, as a gay man, he was like, how many of us would really be gay if master didn't rape grandfather, and grandfather didn't rape father, and father didn't rape son? You know what I mean? So I get the survival instinct and having to break it down politically and economically. But my role, I just focus so much more on how can we even deal with the white men out there when it's still so much of the white men in here that we have not dealt with.
Yeah, facts.
I was watching a movie as a part of class. I can't really remember the name off the top of my head, but part of what happened in the movie was it was set in the 70s, and for the majority of the movie, the Black guy is portrayed to be like a really good guy. He gets involved with this woman. They move to a city, and I want to say Alabama, and he's working on the train yards, and at work he gets pressured by like his white boss, and I think he basically loses his job. But then in turn, he takes that anger and he internalizes it, and he takes it home to his family, ends up hitting the woman that he really loves. And it's just like to what Christine was saying, is like, is this showing his true essence, or is this showing like, yo, he's a product of the system of violence, and he's gonna take it home, and he's gonna, what you have on the streets doesn't leave you when you go into your home. So it might manifest itself in different ways. Yeah. So there is that, that everlasting effect of white, superiority on that guy's mind. And he takes that home and he does things because of it.
There's an interview between James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni, and they speak on the exact same thing. And there's a point where she's basically asking him to pretend for her. The same way he goes to the job and he smiles for the white man and he puts on this great show, super hard work and all that stuff. And he comes home with all the frustrations, that the real feelings he has from the job, and he, pretty much copies and pastes it on his wife and his kids. And she tells him basically, he should, the same way he treats the white boss and he puts on the show for the white boss, he should put on the show for her, so that they can raise their kids, get the kids. And I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh!
Frustration, but at the same time, I'm also hearing suicide. I'm hearing suicide.
And
What?
the reason why he kept getting fired, he getting moved around, is because he wouldn't put on that face for his white boss. Like, he wouldn't act like, the good Negro. Like, he wouldn't fill that role. So that was part of the reason why he was getting backlash from his bosses, is because he didn't want to come. So I just think that's interesting with the point you just made, Agbor, where it's like, yeah, fake it, but what if you're like, I can't even fake it with this guy?
Yeah.
Dang, that's the other level though. Yeah,
I saw part of the talk that you're talking about, and so I love Nikki Giovanni. I have a lot of her poems on my bookshelf, but the idea of faking it isn't exactly, as a Black woman, what I want. I don't want you to fake it. I want respect. And so respect means even when you're upset, you still know how to treat me. You don't take your anger at everybody else and take it out on me. And that's in Black relationships, that's an in relationship, really. If we're going to go widespread, it means that you can't project onto me the anger you have at the rest of the world. You talk to me like I'm a human being. You treat me like you want to be treated. If so-and-so calls you whatever during that day, you don't come home and call me whatever. You deal with your anger with that person. You don't come home and bring it to me. I feel like that's important. So what I wanted to talk about a while back with some of y'all were saying. This was a book, specifically this person called Polly Murray. They were a attorney. They went to Howard Law School in 1941, and they pioneered this term called Jane Crow. And so the point of Jane Crow is about specifically the sexism within the Jim Crow movement, to describe how Black women were being treated by Black men in the Jim Crow movement. It has a lot to do with respectability politics and how being a woman in that movement meant not being at the forefront, meant not having the freedom to do certain things because you were trying to put on faces for master, show that we're respectable Black people, things like that. So it is a lot to do with identity and understanding who we are and who we're not. And it's trauma. All of that is trauma. The fact that that man comes home and yells at his wife, that's a trauma response. That's PTSD. I'm angry. I don't know what to do with these feelings. So I'm gonna take it out on the closest person next to me. And that's the person that you love. That person gets that. So we have to be there to help. I would say help each other. I'm against people being therapy to each other or trauma bonding, but the kind of help that we need, just, I don't know if it can be done in regular therapy unless they like subsidize it. That's part of reparations. Everyone gets free therapy. That'd be cool.
Yeah, majorly.
But yeah, I think
just now you go.
Well, my last point is also I think that identity has to do with our sub-identities too. So the fact of being gay, being woman, being trans, being whatever you may be, that's part of our identity. Those things existed long before Master took us over here in the boat. They were always here. If you look back at history, gay folks always existed. Look at the revolution. We look at Black revolutionary history. Black queer folks, Black women were at the forefront of all this. Black Lives Matter was made by 3 Black queer women. And so we have to realize that those people exist and give them their flowers, because they've been going for us hard for a minute, you know? But as Black men, as Black cisgendered women, things like that, we don't want to give them their flowers when they're fighting for us extremely hard. Because as Black men, for example, you have the privilege of being a man. You know, and Bell Hooks said that like Black men and white women are in a similar space where they have privilege, but they're also oppressed. So they're allowed to choose sometimes. You know, Black men can oppress Black women because they're men, things like that. But for Black queer folks, like, for example, I'm a Black queer woman. That's too much oppression. I have no power. I might have power and privilege and other things. When it comes down to me, if I want to go take a girlfriend down the street, not only do they see that I'm Black, not only do they see that I'm woman, they see that I'm queer at the same time. And all that adds to the trauma of my experience in a way that it might not add to a Black man, a Black cisgendered man. And I'm a cisgendered woman, so it might not add to the experience of a Black trans queer woman, you know? So I think identity is very important in that we need to understand who we are, not, I feel like I went through the phase too where I was like, am I this because of trauma? Am I so-and-so because of trauma? I think what it takes is to say, who am I right now in this space? And meet yourself where you are right now. And then take the journey and take the time to kind of go from there. But don't say, I can't be gay, I can't be whatever because this isn't Black or this isn't so-and-so, or what is historical precedent. It's like, I feel like I'm losing my entire train of thought. But do you guys understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm following you at least.
Yeah. Question for you, Courtney. So I know in Athens they're taking down the Confederate monument and they're replacing the crosswalk with a rainbow crosswalk to represent the LGBTQ community. Do you think that's kind of hijacking the work that maybe Black Lives Matter has done, even though there are a lot of LGBTQ people that are like in the forefront of that movement, but don't, what do you think about that? Is that taking the place of something that should stand for Black progress, racial progress, or racial justice?
I think with that,
I feel like that is Black progress. Absolutely.
Okay. Why?
Why? Because black people are part of the LGBTQ community. So when you put that rainbow on the sidewalk, for a cis hetero black man, it may not mean anything, but there's a black person out there who sees that rainbow and it makes your day. So maybe for you, you may see that there's some sort of separation between your blackness and that rainbow, and you feel like Black Lives Matter works for this, and that rainbow is something other. But there are black people who that is the rainbow is part of their blackness. So because those people exist, the rainbow is part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
So I feel like the rainbow is Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, but it's more than that, because like I have no idea what I think about it, but I think there's two sides to it, in that there are black LGBTQ folks who would identify with that, but it's also important to note that in the LGBTQ space, not all of them are for black people.
Yeah.
People see it inherently as a white space. There are black folks there, but it can be also very racist, and then the black community can be very homophobic, transphobic, queerphobic in general. So as a black queer person, the entire context of it, taking down a Confederate monument to put in the pride flag together, means something. It means something to my entire identity, but I also know that on each sides of those spaces, on each sides of that, I'm still being oppressed to some degree. Like either side is still going to be mad. So I have no idea whether I like it or not, to be honest, and I'm fine with not knowing.
It's not that I don't like it. Go ahead. I get the point. I get the question at least, and it's kind of like, I don't know if that Confederate statue was a representation, it was a representation of oppression from slavery, but I don't know if I just don't know the context of this. If that oppression was directly related to a LGBTQ issue, and I know that it is for an individual who happens to share that intersectionality, but for what the ideology of the Confederacy even meant, it was more of a racial thing, and like replacing it with something that's LGBTQ made it about a sexuality.
I mean, but the Confederacy would have also put a cross in your yard for being gay. So,
right.
Yeah, I guess for me personally, I feel like it should be something that more represents the black struggle as a race rather than the LGBTQ community. I would like to see something that represents racial progress or racial justice. You can even put like a Charlene Hunter and something that represents the progress black people have made against fighting that system of racism. But I mean,
I don't disagree with it. Like
community, so I kind of see both sides too. I'm
I wouldn't focus too much energy on like debating that. That's a good question, but I mean, me personally, like, I see that you all that LGBTQ people have a struggle as well, and like we were talking about, what I'm saying earlier, like we all should be those struggles should help push one another, and I think that came out. Some of the dialogue came out of a question, and I was like, so I think I go here when I think about LGBTQ as well, like President Obama. We don't have to go down this road. President Obama being a black president, black people feeling like, what are you doing for black people? And then you get lobbied heavily by the LGBTQ community, and legislation gets passed, for the equity, equality, and positive treatment of recognition, basically, of the LGBTQ community, and nothing happened like that for black people. Hence, we still saying reparations. You know what I'm saying? I get that, but I also take a step back and I look and say, like, did this help bridge a gap between like how certain people who aren't black, white people, or any other people who share an intersectionality with LGBTQ, did it allow them to at least a little bit more tap into or empathize with a humanist movement that includes black people? You know what I'm saying? So like that's kind of how that's what I'm considering about the situation. Cause like, dang, wow, like to have a white queer person screaming Black Lives Matter. Just think about, I'm think about just think about that. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of a funny thing,
I think just in going back to just the title of this one, Revolution and Reparations, and going back to what we were talking about earlier of how, like, if Fred Hampton would have survived and would have been able to unify a lot more groups that are under oppression of that same system of oppression. Um, I feel like right now is really that time for all of us to actually go full speed ahead because it's kind of like how um I think I was listening to Kwame Terry and he said something about like how a lot of people always say we should go back to how it was in the 60s. And this video is like from like the 90s or something like that. And he was like, there's no way you can, because at the time we were in a war in Vietnam that we shouldn't have been in. And then they still had us over here fighting the war in Vietnam. And but we when he says we, like, it's black people, you had black people over there in Vietnam getting shot up. So it's like he was saying they couldn't afford to fight two flames at once like that. In a sense, I'm paraphrasing in a sense. And it's kind of like I don't think that they would be able to fight us all at the same point, but that may halt things at the same time where it's like it may slow it down. However, if you make enough noise, you see how they eventually hear it. Eventually hear it. You make enough noise and they hear it, but you can't be complacent in what they're trying to just give you though. So it's like I still got to keep on forcing it. I still got to shoot for what I think I can't even reach, because I noticed like, oh, okay, you did something. Well, now I got to keep on going because you still ain't gave me that defund the police. Or I still got to keep on going because you still ain't locked up Breonna Taylor's murderers. So like I still got to keep on. I got to keep this up because I see that you're doing something. But I got to keep this up for my morale, our morale, but also got to keep this up because I see it does produce some type of change. And and it's like, okay, right now we're still on the peaceful side of this. We're still technically there. We're not even the rioters yet. That was really a rebellion. It wasn't even a riot. It was a rebellion. So like we need to get our words right. We're still at the first stage. We haven't as a collective decided, hey, get your gun now. It's time. It's time.
Right.
Yo, he pulled over there. Yo, hey, we pulling over too. Like,
Yeah.
dude, he came here
when you talk about Farmington, they would basically follow the police, like what they military.
Fred Hampton, yeah.
It's like, and that's why I be asking you about law school, Courtney, because I'll still be considering like, should I get into this to learn these laws? But it's like you got to learn those laws so you can do those things. Because right after they did it, they sat there and made I'm pretty sure y'all know, but right after Black Panthers were doing that, then they sat there and put in a law that you couldn't do that. So it was like,
but that little gap in between can make a lot of difference.
Say that one more time, my bad.
That little gap in between when there isn't a law and you know it, and before you make a law, makes a lot of difference.
Exactly.
But I think adding on to the thing about Fred Hampton, I think that revolution is important and it needs to be had. And like you said, we do need to kind of come out, balls to the wall, for lack of a better term, just doing this thing. But education is important. Going back to what I said when we first started, or when I first started, I was a little late. But because in a video that I saw of Fred Hampton, he said without the right political or revolutionary education, you're going to have a revolution, not know why you're doing it. And you're going to get what you want, quotes, and not really have any lasting impact.
Exactly.
So if we all have guns, if we're all going out there, we're all doing things to what end? Why are we doing it? And if we do it for the wrong reasons, if we do it without the education, without the theory of oppression in our minds, we're going to perpetuate oppression in the new society that we make.
Right, a new oppression.
Yeah, it's not understanding how that works, not understanding the base theories of why oppression is there, and working to dismantle that. Not just working to dismantle Black versus white or gay versus straight, things like that. Say at the base level, why are these things here, and what can we do to take this out?
Definitely the type of conversations I want to have.
Question, because I feel like that's a good way to segue into the reparations part. Because we were asking, is this do you agree with reparations? Do you want reparations? Two, is this the time to get them? Or because what we kind of discussed earlier was just that like we might not be educated on this money that we could receive. So like what are your thoughts?
Do you want to have thoughts on that, or do you want to watch the video and then
Oh,
speak
yeah,
on
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah. My bad. Yeah, let's rush the video. Let's do the
Let's
video.
watch the video. Okay.
Okay.
Got a little premiere.
But say it's supposed to pop up.
All right. So this is Ta-Nehisi Coates, the author of Between the World and Me. And he has been at the forefront of the reparations. One second.
HR 40.
Yesterday, when asked
Can
about
y'all hear it? Let me know if y'all need me to turn it up or turn it
Gotta
down.
mute.
Yeah, turn it up a little bit.
You gotta mute in that echo.
Oh, it's
Okay.
that echo.
Mitch McConnell offered a familiar reply. America should not be held liable for something that happened 150 years ago, since none of us currently alive are responsible. This rebuttal proffers a strange theory of governance, that American accounts are somehow bound by the lifetime of its generations. But well into this century, the United States was still paying out pensions to the heirs of Civil War soldiers. We honor treaties that date back some 200 years, despite no one being alive who signed those treaties. Many of us would love to be taxed for the things we are solely and individually responsible for. But we are American citizens, and thus bound to a collective enterprise that extends beyond our individual and personal reach. It would seem ridiculous to dispute invocations of the founders or the greatest generation on the basis of a lack of membership in either group. We recognize our lineage as a generational trust, as inheritance. And the real dilemma posed by reparations is just that, a dilemma of inheritance. It is impossible to imagine America without the inheritance of slavery. As historian Ed Baptist has written, enslavement, quote, shaped every crucial aspect of the economy and politics of America, so that by 1836, more than 600 million, or almost half of the economic activity in the United States derived directly or indirectly from the cotton produced by the million-odd slaves. By the time the enslaved were emancipated, they comprised the largest single asset in America, $3 billion in 1860, more than all the other assets in the country combined. The method of cultivating this asset was neither gentle cajoling nor persuasion, but torture, rape, and child trafficking. Enslavement reigned for 250 years on these shores. When it ended, this country could have extended its hallowed principles, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to all, regardless of color. But America had other principles in mind. And so for a century after the Civil War, Black people were subjected to a relentless campaign of terror, a campaign that extended well into the lifetime of Majority Leader McConnell. It is tempting to divorce this modern campaign of terror, of plunder, from enslavement. But the logic of enslavement, of white supremacy, respects no such borders. And the god of bondage was lustful and begat many heirs, coup d'etats and convict leasing, vagrancy laws and debt peonage, redlining and racist GI bills, poll taxes and state-sponsored terrorism. We grant that Mr. McConnell was not alive for Appomattox, but he was alive for the electrocution of George Stinney. He was alive for the blinding of Isaac Woodward. He was alive to witness kleptocracy in his native Alabama and a regime premised on electoral theft. Majority Leader McConnell cited civil rights legislation yesterday, as well he should, because he was alive to witness the harassment, jailing, and betrayal of those responsible for that legislation by a government sworn to protect them. He was alive for the redlining of Chicago and the looting of Black homeowners of some $4 billion. Victims of that plunder are very much alive today. I am sure they'd love a word with the Majority Leader. What they know, what this committee must know, is that while emancipation dead-bolted the door against the bandits of America. Jim Crow wedged the windows wide open. And that is the thing about Senator McConnell's something. It was 150 years ago, and it was right now. The typical black family in this country has 1/10 the wealth of the typical white family. Black women die in childbirth at 4 times the rate of white women. And there is, of course, the shame of this land of the free, boasting the largest prison population on the planet, of which the descendants of the enslaved make up the largest share. The matter of reparations is one of making amends and direct redress, but it is also a question of citizenship. In H.R. 40, this body has a chance to both make good on its 2009 apology for enslavement and reject fair weather patriotism, to say that a nation is both its credits and its debits, that if Thomas Jefferson matters, so does Sally Hemings, that if D-Day matters, so does Black Wall Street, that if Valley Forge matters, so does Fort Pillow. Because the question really is not whether we will be tied to the somethings of our past, but whether we are courageous enough to be tied to the whole of them. Thank you.
Any thoughts? I think that was really good. I got away words.
Yeah.
Anybody
want to
for me, it was just like the audacity of, I guess Senator McConnell said this was like 140 years ago. I mean, that's got to be one of the most uneducated perspectives on race relations in America that you could really point out, especially if this guy's supposed to be the lead on the HR bill. I don't really know too much about it, so I don't want to speak wrongly.
Yeah, it's kind of, I feel like it's just him being him, because right now he's blocking something right now, wasn't he? Like in Kentucky, wasn't he trying to block the anti-lynching bill?
I actually don't know if he was trying to block that. I heard about that bill, but I don't know what Mitch McConnell's role in it was. But yeah, I just know from watching that, like, honestly, he's basic. I think the case for reparations, especially as he's putting it, is basically that our past is still today. He was saying that. So the oppression that existed 150 years ago still exists today in a lot of ways, but just differently, right? So it doesn't look like a slave plantation exactly. It doesn't look like certain disenfranchising laws, voting or whatever, but there's still voter suppression. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we've seen all of these things play out. And I think the case for reparations is saying, all right, we're already fighting an uphill battle with slavery alone. Why are you making it steeper by not recognizing the wrong that was done and that is still being done right now? Let's even this out a little bit. It shouldn't be this uphill, and y'all know what y'all did to make it this way.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So like, and that's the whole argument with, like, okay, are you going to set aside your privilege to acknowledge our oppression? You know what I'm saying? That ends up in that question of race and the system of privileges that come along with it. I personally think reparations should occur, but I also feel this way. I also feel like if somebody is doing something to you intentionally, or they are complicit with it continuing to happen, why am I asking somebody, like, why am I asking them to do something that's clear they don't want to do? You know what I'm saying? Why am I asking?
And I think he made a great point at the end. There's like, yo, we're gonna have to come to terms with this history. Like, y'all want to believe, y'all want to support certain parts of history, but y'all don't want to acknowledge other parts of history. Like, I think it comes in. That's part of like why Senator McConnell is that way. Is like that lack of education, acknowledgement of like our racist history in America.
I think it reminds me of this whole argument regarding the Confederate flag, because the same people who are talking about Southern heritage and Southern pride will tell you to forget slavery happened. So it's like, okay, I'm telling you to forget about the Confederate soldiers and just realize that that's just history. You know, let's put it somewhere. And you're telling me that's your heritage and your pride and all that stuff, but you're telling me to forget that slavery happened because it happened 150 years ago. So it's literally just picking parts of history where you're comfortable with, and that they feel represent them. And, you know, it's an easy thing to do for them to do, at least when they're the authors of this history. So.
Yeah, that's the history books for you. You know what I'm saying? We hear D-Day, V-Day, all of this stuff, Normandy, Pearl Harbor. We hear all of these things, but you have to go dig to find, you know what I'm saying, Rosewood, or to find out stuff about Tulsa. And
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Trump helped us point out, he helped bring some eyes on Tulsa. Of course, he was doing it in whatever way, like Trump,
Witchcraft.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah, you know, I don't even know what to call it, but you know what I'm saying? It brought attention or awareness to that. But
He did
like,
that 'cause of you.
yeah, huh?
He did that because we did that.
Yeah, he tried to take credit for Juneteenth, and he wanted to do the whole rally there. And you know, I mean, there's a lot of white people that don't know. Oh yeah, like they don't know that Tulsa was burned down, and that was a place of black prosperity. So it's like, oh yeah, y'all need to do for yourselves. I talked to this lady from, I was telling y'all earlier, but yeah, I talked to this lady from South America. She's from Venezuela, and she said her husband's from the Czech Republic, and she made the comment, do you know why so many Hispanics are Republican when they get here? And her view is, this country gave me certain privileges or certain opportunities to be able to get ahead. And she says, you all in America, you all protesting, I'm assuming she meant you all black people, are so ungrateful for the opportunity that you have here, right? And so, and I know in some ways African people think that way. You know what I'm saying? As well. And but what we're really talking about is, do adjustments need to be made, or is America the America where we can really pursue opportunity freely and reparations isn't needed?
That's an old argument, bro. Like that's super old. Like they've been having that argument forever but the thing is,
What argument exactly?
the argument of where other people can come here and they thrive. And we
Okay.
I mean, in Miseducation of the Negro, oh shit, no, damn. In Miseducation of the Negro, he talks about that. Whereas like I think it's like in the first chapter, maybe second chapter, maybe, where he's like, I'm paraphrasing again, but he basically says like, why is it that we don't work out, but everybody, the foreigners come here, set up shop, and they seem to work out. And so he's kind of like, again, it's just the premise of the whole book. Like, this is why we've been miseducated. Like we're the ones that's been brought here when we didn't want to come here. Y'all came here because y'all wanted to come here. We didn't want to come here. Like we have a different situation here, and that's what it seems like. It's not what it was clicking. But going back to your point though, on the why are we asking them now? That
Yeah.
when I think of that, because I'm very much in that same sense, but more of like why the hell are we asking them? We need to take it.
You're talking about demanding.
No, not even just in demanding. Just that takes me all the way back to the conversation earlier where Courtney was explaining how buying into that capitalist system is still buying into that president. However, but it's like, if I have to ask you for this, then I must play with my team now. Because again, this is group oppression. So now I must actually have my group unity to understand, like, again, with y'all, I've talked about this before, where it's like with Baldwin, I think I love the way he talks. He talks as the world should be. He talks as like and a global dream that it should be, that we all should really be trying to attain, like the bigger picture of all of this, really. Whereas with Malcolm, it's like, nah, we here right now. Like, this is how it is, and this is how I'm going to fix it. So, like, I can't wait till that big picture comes. I'm right here. So that's why I go back to the conflicting of, okay, one of those plans that I know works is group economics, but that makes me have to buy into that system. So should I work with my team, or do I want to go with this unity? And it takes me back to the whole LGBTQ plus community, because that is also somebody's getting depressed. But if I can get them on my side, then bam, I got two against them. Now, if I get the Hispanics realizing what's going on with that, with them, like, I fuck with you too. I fuck with you too. You've been fucked over too. There's a reason why all of y'all communist systems in y'all countries didn't work. Yeah, it was our CIA. So I understand. I understand. Come on my side, because yo, we got this. Now, then if I can get the other people, like the if I can go start getting that to click, then I can go to Asia. Then I can start branching out. Then I can then if I get that bigger, Asia has the biggest population. If I start making things click there, now I can go back home. Now I really can go back home.
Like, why are you talking about Asia? They buying up land in Africa now. China is.
Exactly. That's why I need them to fix their shit. So they can get the fuck out of my home. So I can go back home. You know? I want to go. The USA ain't nothing if I got everybody else on my side. If I will never, like they always say, we will never be free until Africa is free.
Yeah. Well, I think we should all give a yes or no answer. I'm gonna say yes, reparations, comma. I don't think we should be asking for it. We should be doing our own thing. All right, I'm gonna leave it there.
Okay, and also give your opinion on if we were giving reparations, would Black people be ready for it?
Yeah, what's your opinion on that, bro?
Who you talking about? Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You think we're ready?
Yes. Are we ready? What do you mean? What do you mean? Are we ready for it?
Are we ready?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Like,
hold on.
I don't know about y'all, but
yes. It's not like, are we ready for it?
Wait,
what?
The thing is, they always bring up how we're still already 1.2 or 1.5 trillion of our economy already, and we keep blowing it. It's not in our body. It's not going back to us. So, like, are we ready for it? Because
man,
back to us.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I think that Black people spending trillions of dollars, whatever the Black culture they say spends, and we spend disproportionately more. I think that's a myth. Okay, I think that's a myth that people buy into as the consumerism of the Black culture. I think that yes, our income and wealth ownership is disproportionately lower, right? And I feel that as far as systems or institutions that allow us to recycle our money, we own a lower percentage of that. But I don't think we spend disproportionately more than any other people. It just comes back around to them because this is the system. Black people are ready for that, but we need what we're saying is like Amber Jones, like the whole Monopoly game. You know what I'm saying? If we haven't been able to start, you know what I'm saying, start these practices or even be able to start the game, yeah. How can we build? Like how can our evolution happen if we don't even have this access? And that's where reparations is saying, give us the access we never got. And that's not even comparing to what we really need, but give us the access.
Money though. What will we do with reparations?
I do agree with we need to figure that out, because okay, it's like we can't waste it. So we need to start building systems that support us. We should think about that's a good question.
But so, I think that
continue, Courtney.
Oh, so I think that for one, yes, reparations. I don't think are Black people ready for reparations? Is the system ready to give that power?
Yeah, right.
You know? So my thing is, if I have a boat, or if like I'm in a boat, or I have like a bucket full of water and it has a hole in it, if you give me more water, it's gonna flow right back out.
Right,
you know?
right.
The system is set up to keep us down, to make us, because like we pay more, but we pay more because of the way the system is. You know, if you're poor, your interest rates are higher. You can't get credit cards. You can't have these access points to wealth the way you do if you have money. You know, so if we're still at the bottom, if we're still struggling to get correct lending, if we're dealing with predatory lending, if we're dealing with all these other institutional systemic parts of financing that makes it hard for us to retain wealth, to keep wealth, to not spend as much money, then no matter how much you give to us, it's going to go right out that hole.
Right back
Because
into
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I
you get
agree.
reparations. My reparations mean, yes, a money amount, but my reparations, what you have to pay to me, is justice. And my justice comes from tearing the whole thing down. You tear that whole thing down, then we start and give me what's due.
And okay, let me add on to that. And this is what I feel on that point.
Mhm.
Nobody is finna give you the keys to freaking destroy them.
Yeah.
So whatever you feel me though. So whatever it is we got to do, we just got to do it because they're not about to like you feel me on that.
I
Like
agree. I believe that's why reparations is even on the table to begin with. They wouldn't even talk about it. They would not let Ta-Nehisi Coates sit there and talk about it if they didn't already know at the end of that line, it don't matter no way. I'm gonna let you fight for something that I know isn't gonna make your life better because you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
Not to say reparations is wasting your time, but like in the long run, for what we could do, it's taking the system down.
Yeah.
Once again, putting water in a bucket with a hole ain't gonna retain water. It's not gonna stay there.
right.
It's not gonna help us. And what's worse is what they're gonna do is if they give us reparations, they're gonna give it to us and say, "Now shut up."
Exactly, dog.
Stop
That's
complaining.
Don't complain no more. We give you what you wanted.
So are we?
Yeah.
We can't
What-
not be ready for it.
So like you know like how like cause the Civil Rights Act of '65 is it would I don't know if it would be on par as saying okay hey we're equal now.
That's
All
what-
right, cool. And then it's still not really be equal. You get what
it'll
I'm
be
saying?
another
Like I don't
50
know if
years.
that situation would happen, but
Yeah, I think it will. It's like I'm sorry, I'm hearing like a back feed, but like it's like with Obama. They said you have your black president now. Let it go. Racism is over. You know, or like we desegregated schools. Racism is over now. It's good. It's because it's a system. Even if one black person gets power, they don't have enough to topple an entire system. We can't go up within and then take it apart. You take it apart from outside, like you said. Like you can't ask for permission. You have to just get over with it. You have to just take it apart from the very bottom.
yeah.
And it's like, will we? When will that happen? I have no idea.
So to be specific about that, kind of Christine, I know you were hitting on this. I want to hear what your feedback is, but I definitely think that's in like things like urban planning. That's one, construction and real estate. That's two, some form of an exchange system. I won't say that will be capitalism. That's three, education and you say defense. Okay, so you're talking about the militia. So I think how housing, city infrastructure, education, some form of an economic system, and I mean I think those are places to start, and then I guess transit. You know what I'm saying? I think, and food. Of course not. I can't forget about food. Food and health. That health is the other thing. Food and health. Those are the other things. I think those are the things we would, if we're talking about we would need reparations, lasting reparations. I think it would be like, okay, hey, here's specifically what we're asking. And some people are saying, oh yeah, reparations can come in the form of like something like what Robert Smith did, loan forgiveness or loan forgiving, or it could look like going to college for free. You know what I'm saying? It could look like, oh, maybe your first 2 years in housing. Like there's creative ideas around, you know what I'm saying, reparations. Like, okay, maybe your first house, you don't have to pay XYZ amount. You don't have to pay this interest. Those are marginal provisions, but I think building our own system for taking whatever the reparations look like and perpetuating it is what really needs to be in place. Christine, I think that's what you were asking about.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is, who would be getting reparations? And I think that's the main one. Like, who exactly would be getting it? Because for me, I mean, all our ancestors were slaves in some regard, but that's I'm an immigrant from Africa, so I trace my oppression based on what my blackness looks like to a different source. For me, I want reparations from Europe. I want them from England and France.
Oh wow!
So
wow.
That's
enough. Yeah.
Can I pull up and
that's what I need.
What would that look like?
Yeah, wow. That's, man, you brought a whole nother level to reparations that I haven't even been thinking about. I think even maybe Black Americans, African Americans, white Americans, you're talking about reparations from the like quote unquote source, like
Yeah, I want it.
Britain. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, that's a whole nother level to me. And that's a good point. I think it would come from the. I think it would definitely come from the government. You know what I'm saying? But in the form of a servants, in the form of a service, or I mean, you could call it like a forgivance isn't a word, but like, okay, honestly, like we understand that your economic situation, your social situation was changed in these ways. We're acknowledging and we're at least trying to be a little bit more accountable for how our actions as a white supremacy system has exerted pressure on your lifestyle and your people and your standard of living that we actually benefit from. So let's, as white people, also look at the ways we benefit and let's try to share that with y'all. That's a place for white people to start.
When you said reparations and like loan forgiveness or free school, I would like to say be careful with that school because we need our own schools too. Because I don't think that they can teach us properly, and I don't think that it's in their interest to teach us properly.
That's another
right.
So yeah,
white
I think
institution.
aim is somebody said something about like the higher up in level, like you go to the Harvard or Yale or something, it says the more educated you are, the more indoctrinated you really are. So it's further from what you really want, at least in your personal interests or your group interests. So be careful with that one, because
yeah, I get what you're saying. I do have to get. I'm gonna just say this, y'all. I'm sorry. I do have to get ready to roll out. But I'm already late. But I will answer your question real quick. And it's been a pleasure meeting all of y'all. By the way, Christine, Angbor, Courtney, I know you. But really, this has been cool. Like this is the second time, and like I feel like we're really getting into the weeds with some things that our community really needs answers for, and I'm glad we're doing that. I think so. Zach, to answer your question in short, I think ultimately reparations should be more for us, and whether it's reparations or not, we should focus on building our systems and building what our community looks like. So in the same breath that we say, oh, we need to tear the system down, and I know that's our survival instinct, Courtney speaking, we just need to tear it down. That mentality. I think ultimately it kind of boils down to that. Y'all can debate it when I'm gone, but I think that's a survival reaction. Is fight or flight. If the system is changing my life, I want to tear the system down, but I think in the same breath we need to be like, okay, yeah, let's tear that down, but what system do we build for ourselves? Is it a system, and what does it look like? You know what I'm saying? Because I think having the alternative. So like from a capitalist realist perspective, Mark Fisher wrote a book called Capitalist Realism. Because we bought into this system, we now respond to it as the truth and as a reality, and our minds can't even entertain other alternatives because we only see what is present. So if we're talking about getting out of or debasing, debunking, removing, dismantling, what do we like? What is it that we're focusing our energy on? Manifestation. What is it that we are manifesting now as we continue our lives forward? And I don't, some people might be like, well, we need to tear this down and then see, but like, how feasible is that really?
And one thing I don't think we've explored in this conversation, we've talking about reformation or tearing down the system, but I think there's also another option, just to like completely leave the system, that people aren't necessarily exploring. Like we don't necessarily gotta be here in America. Like we could move.
Will they let us leave?
Move where?
Peacefully.
Move everywhere. The influence is everywhere.
I'm trying to go to Ghana, man. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Y'all hold it down though. All right, then I'm gonna see y'all. Great meeting, y'all.
Like like I told you before, that one professor was saying like the last time he went to Ghana, it was like I saw more white Jesus than I saw ever before.
Yeah.
So the influence is everywhere, man. It don't matter where you go.
This system isn't just in America. And it's why America is the hegemony, or like the superpower, air quotes, that it is because we are the beacon. Us in Europe are the beacon of the Western world, and we set the precedent for what's supposed to be. So we set a cultural precedent of what all this is supposed to be. When I say tear it down, I do mean tear it down, but I don't mean wait and see. That's where my earlier point to education comes. It's revolution to tear it down, but without the education to know where you want to go next, it's for naught. You know?
Mhm.
So you have to next. So if you have reparations and it's like, you know, free school, free this, whatever, if it's just one thing in the system, all these other things in the system are gonna F you up, basically.
Mhm.
You know, so if I get free school, sure, but I still have to worry about the police. I have to worry about housing. I have to worry about food. I have to worry about healthcare. So no matter what, I'm still down.
Right.
No matter what, if they give us reparations the way things are right now, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Exactly.
Tear it down and build a new system. Maybe, I don't know, annex the whole South and make it a new country, make that just by itself. But even so, we have countries that want to go toward this new system, places like Cuba, things like that. You know what the US does? They go in, they take the CIA and they dismantle that country. You know, they give what's what I'm looking for? When the sanctions, there we go. Sanctions. They give sanctions, they dismantle it, they destabilize the government. Because to give us hope by showing a different type of system is too much. They don't want to do that. But the reason why we can't see or conceptualize that type of system is because they have tried their darndest to make sure we have no examples.
Right.
And that we depend on it to a certain extent.
Yep.
So I guess to try to wrap up, what's everybody else's place? Yes, no, is it? I feel like I got a concept of Courtney's possibly. Even though you haven't said yes or no, but I get. Yeah.
Yes.
What y'all thinking?
As far as, oh, go ahead, Ivor.
For me, it's a yes. Just like I said before, my questions are more practical: what it'll look like and who will inherit it. So, but definitely, I feel like, of course.
Yeah.
Everybody else is, of course.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, what do, like, as a collective, right? As a Black collective, what do we really want with reparations, or just with, you know, just change, reform, revolution, whatever you want to call it, all the different ways that we've called it. What do we really want? And in order to get there, like Courtney spoke a lot about, education, right? Healing. A lot of healing has to happen, because Black men and Black women, Black families, we don't even have that right now as it should be to go up against this fight, right? Like, because it's gonna be a fight.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to identify what we want from that education and from that healing, and then prepare ourselves, right, to fight and obtain what it is that we want.
Mm-hmm.
And are we ready for that?
Mm-hmm. Jalen, you got some input, bro?
Well, if I basically feel like if reparations on the table, I'm definitely taking them. I'm not saying no. Are we ready? I really like to the points that Christine and Courtney said. Like, you know, if you fill a bucket with a hole, it's just gonna pour out. And it's like, are we ready to deal with the responsibility of, like, you know, creating something new? I think a lot of education has to happen financially, about history, culture, and if I think reparations in the form of just like money were to work, to
right? Like, what does that look like for us? Like, is money just the only exchange that we want? Right?
A
You
lot
guys
of people
mentioned
that
all the other
go buy Gucci bags with their reparations,
exactly,
you know,
right?
Or like an Audi, like
Balenciaga, all of that.
So, some of our things is like Black liberation through education, putting solutions into action. So since I feel like we've discussed this to some extent, I feel like it could be even more thorough. Obviously, it's a 400-year conversation. I would like to what we try to do is figure out how we can find solutions for our society, and I'd like to put forth. Would this be, I guess, Jalen? Would this be our first thing that we could say that we kind of want to see in our society? Like, what would actually be first? Would it be education and the healing first? Is that what? Do y'all agree on that? Like, should that be something that there should be something in place that gives us an education that's actually for us, for our benefit, something that contributes to our success, not to the system's success? Not, and then should we have some type of system in place for healing so that we can move on to having a clear mental, a clear holistic balance so that we can move forward to whatever the next step is? Would that be something that we could say should be first?
I feel like it's both. I feel like we need an education on healing. A lot of people need to realize that there's healing that needs to happen. I feel like we were so used to this, just how mundane the system is, that we don't realize that we're beaten up. You know, the system has beaten us up, and we're broken down. We need soul chiropractors, goddamn, to really get us where we need to be, to be physically apt and mentally apt, for we speak of revolution and these ambitions and aspirations that we have. So I feel like an education on healing.
So I guess eventually we're gonna have to try to get a therapist on this show. like it would be nice. I'm pretty sure we can hook that up somehow. We got connections.
Definitely. I know a couple therapists. We're gonna get them on.
Yeah. So I know I personally have to jet too. I'm actually late for another call. Yeah. So would we like to wrap this up? Or
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I appreciate Courtney, Agbor, and Christine for y'all hopping on. This was kind of just like we were kind of just going with the flow here, trying to create a discussion. But I think it went well. I think we were all pretty engaged, and yeah, it's something we'll probably try to do in the future. So if y'all are interested in doing it again, just let us know.
Yeah.
And especially if y'all have any ideas for conversation, also come to us with that, and we could just hop on and talk.
Shoot, it could be a Wednesday thing.
Yes.
Nah, that's a goal. That's a goal because this is a conversation that needs to keep happening. Like these are conversations that are needed. I was in a barber chair once having a conversation like this, and one of the dudes was like, "Oh, this is the deepest conversation I've ever heard." And I'm like, "Dog, this ain't even that deep yet."
Ain't even it though. We barely scratching the surface.
Yeah, exactly. So it needs to keep on reoccurring. But just for the people that end up watching this, like, share, subscribe. I don't know where it's at.
Hit the like button if you're a revolutionary thinker.
I really forgot this was live.
yeah.
We didn't really, but I think next week we'll probably pub more for it. We didn't really know what we were gonna do, but I think this is cool. I think people will enjoy tuning into this type of conversation.
Yeah,
definitely.
I really appreciate what everybody had to say, just the feelings, the different stories. I learned a lot more just having LGBT members here, right? Just kind of seeing how you guys think and helping us to just bridge these gaps, right? So I really do appreciate just the platform that you guys are creating here, that you have created here.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch. Have a blessed week, man. Y'all be easy.
All right. Peace.
All right.